morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm CW, and this is BTH&T, Books, Travels, Histories, and Tales. Today's is, what is today? January something, 28th, 2025. Okay, so I mentioned a date because, we have to get this place. This is called The Sky is Falling, Part 1. And it has to do with predictions. Not a real big fan of Nostradamus. I'm kind of like Penn and Teller. If you think something's going to happen, then just tell me. And then don't say, well, I told you it was going to have a red wing airplane. Most of them have red in them. So, yeah, you're just playing odds then. So, we'll start with this. It's America, early days. Back during the time in the 18th century, which would be 1700s, the Great Awakening. Good reason for Great Awakening, because when America was settled, us English, Scottish, Irish, maybe French and Spanish, we were all a little uptight. We had left the good country and come to the sticks. It was rough. It was rough. And since we left the old country, we left the old church. Later on in the 19th century, we were drinking anywhere between 7 quarts and gallons of liquor, mostly because, well, it was just convenient and the water sucked. But you couldn't do anything. This was a social life. Alcohol was everybody. Where a baptism, alcohol. A child being christened, alcohol. Raising a barn, beer, stuff like that. So the Great Awakenings, the religious revivals, they came in waves. Also, during this time, we had what we call American religions coming. In the early 19th century, you'll have Joseph Smith, you know, the founder of the Mormon religion, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Well, also in that time, they're born to a Baptist family, I believe, I want to say upstate New York, was William Miller. William Miller, most of the time he spent his time traveling back and forth between upstate New York and Vermont. He came from a Baptist family. Other than that, he got involved with the War of 1812, which, for the most part, people tend to remember as a second um, War of Independence, mostly started because of commerce or seizing sailors from ships, impressment. It's another story. Teddy Roosevelt wrote a good book on it. That's right, the president. So William Miller has an involvement with the War of 1812. I don't know what happened, but he wanted to prove logically his faith in his religion. And he used the Bible. I think he used the King James Version. That would have been probably the most available type there in the colonies. So he reasoned that an Old Testament day was equivalent to a modern year in the 19th century. So early in the 1830s, he made a prediction that Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the one who was crucified at the hands of the Romans, who entered the tomb with no broken bones, would come back between March 1st 1843, and March 1st, 1844. His followers were known as the Millerites. He preached this for 10 years. He had become a ordained Baptist minister, mostly in the Northeast, and he was getting somewhat of a following. In the Great Awakening, they taught about if you didn't have salvation and you had sin, you were going to go to hell. That you could have a direct conversation or not, a relationship with God. All that. Well, in this, he was actually telling you this between this date and this date, Jesus of Nazareth is coming back. He taught the advent of Christ. Now, advent means arrival. Several of the Christian denominations, Anglicans, uh, other Baptists, they were kind of differed on this. Not so much that they didn't think Christ was coming back, but to them, Christ wouldn't come back until heaven on earth had been instilled for at least 1,000 years. And in America, anything but heaven on earth was there during the 19th century. So there was some disagreement. But he kept preaching it. And he did the circuit, Massachusetts, Vermont, all up in New England. He got very popular. He got so popular, other ministers of smaller church would start making arrangements for tent revivals for him. Kind of like they were going to sponsor it and still keep their name open. Well, as the date gets closer, you know, March 1st, 1843 came, and then March 1st, 1844 came, and no carpenter's son showed up. He went back. He said, "Look, I made a mistake. The date's actually October 22nd. Make plans on it." According to legend, some people did make plans to it. They bought white robes or made them. Their ascension gowns. There's legends about kids and their families climbing into apple trees, trying to be that much closer to Christ when he came down from the clouds on October 22nd. This is not legend. People had that much faith that they sold their property, gave away their livestock, busted up their furniture. Not going to need it anymore. The world as we know it won't be anymore. Slash tag REM. Well, October 22nd came and went. October 22nd, on October 23rd, became known as the Great Disappointment. People wept. Don't know what they wept for. Maybe they thought the advent of Christ happened somewhere else. Yeah. Maybe he didn't come to New York or Massachusetts. Or they wept because of what they lost or gave away. But he wasn't done. He was going to go ahead and make a correction yet again that in 1845, the springtime, Christ would come back that time. And as you know, he did not. It would have been in the papers, but it wasn't. Unfortunately for William Miller, he later passed away in 1849. But he did set a precedent, and more than likely the beginning of the Seventh-day Adventists, and the Jehovah's Witness religion, also in America. Well, that's part one. Part two won't be so religious. See you next time. Bye.